Okay, I'm going to do a quick little demo of the RuleChains application. This is the product that was split off of Person Registry. I'll show that in a little bit, but for now, this is what it looks like. Um, it does write all changes to a Git repository. I won't show that. It has a monitor. It will show any running jobs, any histories, and logs the timings. Right now it's all cleared out. Yeah, we cleared all that stuff out. So there's no running jobs. It's running quartz in the background, so you can schedule jobs to run. These jobs basically come with the name of the job and the timestamp, and they are linked to a chain. They are on a quartz trigger, so this little quartz thing here, and you can have it logged to email. We generally haven't used that feature. There's a feature here where you can submit a new job for scheduling. You can select one of the rule chains that are in there. So let's take a look at the chains themselves. A chain, I'll just pick a chain here that's not proprietary. Let's see, maybe this is a good one here. This is a chain. A chain is made up of rules, and the rules have certain actions that are associated with them. This one has a source name. They have different source names. You have multiple database sources that you set up. So this can run against as many data sources as you set up in it. This rule, this SQL query is a type. It's going to run this with execute using row. It's going to produce a record set, and the link action is to loop. It will look for an end loop, or it will just have an implied end loop at the end, and that's how this chain actually works. We can take a look at what that looks like, and what we have here is we have a name. We have this rule has this query in it, and this allows you to manipulate the input and the output from this. It's going to produce two different output types. It's going to be, that output type is in the format of a key value pair array. This will allow you to manipulate it if you need to change that in any way. The input order handles what's coming from the prior rule into this, since there's nothing coming. Actually, the GID is coming into this. This is the syntax that you use for prepared statements. And an output order, I'm not doing anything with that in this particular rule. This next rule is actually a groovy rule. And a groovy rule is a groovy script. And this one is execute using row. That means it's taking a variable in, and that variable is an implied row. And it's going to execute this statement. And what it's going to do, it's going to append to row. So what it's going to do is going to take the prior row and append the result of this to that. And there's no loop action on this, and there's no manipulation on this particular one. And let's see. So we have several pieces here. Most of these are groovy rules in this case. There's another SQL query. Not doing anything really fancy in this one, but this is the mechanism that allows you to change the input and output reorder. This allows you to transform the data. The transformation for input and output is in Groovy, using a plugin that will let you write Groovy script. I'm not actually going to do that right now, but you can you have full control over how you handle the input and output of each particular rule. Now these chains are made up of rules. This is representative of a chain of these rules, and you'll see that they're in the format of VIP email or VIP. They're all coming from the same rule set. You'll see next to that's rule set, And this is where you have common rules that you can reuse to build sequences or chains of those rules. And so we'll just go in and look at the VIP rule set. Actually, I think it was VIP emailer. And these are the base rules that are in there. And you see there's mostly Groovy rules and a couple of SQL query rules. So the SQL query, it's a simple interface. This plugin here that I'm using, this JavaScript plugin, allows for this to be formatted and highlighted and stuff. And that's kind of the nature of that. This is set by default because it is an SQL rule to read SQL, to format it as SQL. The Groovy rules are formatted as Groovy. This one is actually just producing a warning template, and you can scroll down. This is just a little manipulation. What this is it sends out a warning to sponsors of VIPs. We have accounts that are created that have to be sponsored by a particular individual, and when they're about to expire, the VIP sponsor is notified that the accounts that they're sponsoring are about to expire. So this is just an expiry notice on that. Now there's also in here you have service handlers, and I only have one marked here. Service handler is where you specify a particular chain that you want to run as a service, and this particular chain is running as a put service. And there's not a lot in here. Some of this actually comes in the configuration itself, that you have to kind of pre-configure on some of this. This is using some of the Spring security backend stuff. But this is the essence of setting up a service handler, setting up a rule chain as a service. Now you can also schedule chains, as you saw back here, to run on a particular schedule, so it will just process data as that chain has done that aggregate processing. And when they're running, you can monitor the running jobs. You can see the histories of those jobs. These histories have been cleared out recently. And you can see the timings of how long it took for each particular rule in the chain to execute and the total execution time. There is a backup and restore feature that will back up the current data that's in the rule chains itself and allow you to restore it so you can move it back and forth between instances of rule chains. It is based on a database, but is also writing to a Git repository. And I'm not sure what Git repository that is. Let's see if we can look back here on the start on that. This is just the rules being pulled in from the Git repository and rebuilding the database. Every time it loads its data directly from the GitHub repository and builds the database itself. And this is just the quick little overview of rule chains and what you can do with it. So you build rules into rule sets, then you assemble those rules that are in each rule set into an aggregate chain. You can expose that chain as a service, or you can schedule that chain to run on a particular schedule to perform aggregate actions. You can monitor it, schedule it, back it up, restore it. That's my quick overview of rule chains. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to do a quick demo of the pipeline in Jenkins that I built for this. I'm just running this from my Jenkins instance at home. Since this is a pipeline build, it's reading a Jenkins pipeline file that's in the root of the actual project itself. And that kicks off all of the commands that need to build this project. So I'll just click on Build Now. And there you go, so it's going to start building. And we'll look under the hood in just a second. I'm installing FPM. FPM allows me to package it as an RPM. And currently this particular project is a Java 7 project. It does need an update to Java 8, and I'd like to move it out of Grails into something like Spring Boot or another Java style platform. And this is a fairly old pipeline. I generally do things a little bit differently now. It's a little more streamlined, but it's built this. The FPM itself is a Ruby Gems module. It uses Ansible roles. It's stashing the results of the some, I'm not sure that was, runs a test, goes through the build process. The build takes a while. It's a Gradle build, and it produces a WAR file, and it will also produce a RPM. Generally the way that we've deployed this is the RPM itself will drop the WAR file in the Tomcat location where it will be auto deployed, because it will detect that something has been put in there, and it will automatically start deploying it in Tomcat. So we've got a little bit of time here. We can look under the hood while this is going. We're reaching pretty much the end of. I'm looking at the console. You'll notice in here, if you've ever seen Ansible, I'm running an Ansible script right now. This is this playbook is doing the build. I'm injecting some extra libraries into the local Maven repository. Of particular interest are the Oracle JDBC drivers, which are generally not found in repos. So it injects it so that way it will meet its dependencies. There's some other pieces in here that are some of our proprietary things that are part of some other local Maven files. It's just preparing the environment so that way when it does this build process, it will pull those in and build the resulting WAR file. And this will take a minute, but so it takes a little while to do that. As if anybody has had much experience with Grails, it's not a very quick build. The dependencies take a while. It uses Ivy. You may have noticed this little thing popped up here because it's produced the WAR file. In a second it will also have the RPM file. There you go. And I'll actually have to refresh this. This is a local instance, so there we go. So we have a WAR file and a RPM file. Generally this will show the actual pipeline steps. This is probably my configuration. I cleared this out for the demonstration, so I apologize. Normally it steps through each particular piece and graphically represents that. Probably because I cleared it, it didn't do that. But that's the synopsis of the CI build. This is actually targeted for Rails 6. This is actually running on a fairly old server. So that's why this pipeline build is a little bit different than what you might see in more modern systems, the Rails 7 systems and stuff like that. It is running on, like I said, Tomcat 7. It is Java 7, and it's far due for an update. But you have these artifacts that are produced from this. You can pull those down. This will automatically put it in the correct location. It's upgradable. It's trackable in the system, so you can query it, so that way you don't have untracked files in the system. They're actually they can be tracked back to the actual RPM they belong to. And with Ansible and Jenkins pipeline, you can handle the whole process of building it, deploying it, and configuring it. And that is my demonstration of the continuous integration process. that I use to build and deploy this application.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little quick look into the code on RuleChains. It's just this is a Grails application. It's actually not the latest version of Grails. It uses domain classes that essentially back Hibernate and JPA. It has some transients. This is the chain Groovy. This is an object to represent a chain of rules. It has several constraints in here. This save with get, this is a metaprogramming piece that essentially is Java reflection, but Groovy handles it a lot more gracefully. These methods are being metaprogrammed onto several classes. You'll see some of this stuff. The after insert, before insert. So anytime there's a change to the underlying table, it will automatically update GitHub, the project that's specified. So you can see some of those after inserts. And it's very similar to what you might do in JPA. It has the hibernate and persistence and stuff like that. So you have that. It's got functions, execute. Some of this is just this IDE doesn't pick up on all this stuff. So it's going to complain about certain things that it can't pick up on. You know, there's execution of different types. That's SQL. That's stored procedure. That's Groovy. There's Python, Ruby, and actually even PHP. That was a requirement. And defined service is an external service, if just an external REST service, and this handles that, executing a defined service as a rule. It also supports CAS authentication if necessary. CAS is at least the way that this was done, uses a a RESTful style of authentication. And of course, it supports the basic, auth digest, auth, all that stuff. Um, Snippets are actually a reference to a chain, a rule chain itself that you're referencing as a individual rule. So you can have a chain that has a snippet that's actually reference of running a chain within a chain. So you can nest chains within chains within chains. Um, and so that's there's a lot of stuff in here to handle the running uh, the before and after conversions and stuff, inserting in um, the values from previous rules, and just some basic stuff there. Um, the rule is an abstract class that is extended by the different types. The most common type would be an SQL query. So this will actually extends the rule, adds in some additional fields, has some handling for get. So if that particular rule type is used, um, and that is bootstrapped in. We do the little build the meta stuff and do some things in here that are setting up the get repository, the get synchronization when it first loads up. Um, and then of course we have the chain service, which actually executes the chain and provides the basic RESTful services to modify, create, and everything that you do through the interface. This is all Hibernate. You'll notice some of these built-in type of commands that look very Hibernate-y. Um, and so, anyways, that's just a quick little review of some of the code that makes up rule chains. Thank you very much.